Whether you just finished off a rotisserie chicken from your grocery store or you have the bones left from one you roasted yourself, that carcass still has work to do, and you and I are gonna make a beautiful chicken stock together. Step 1, get yourself a stock pot big enough to contain your chicken carcass with some extra room. Fill the pot with cold water, enough to cover the chicken plus a couple extra inches. Put that pot over medium-high and grab your knife. Chicken's in the pot, heat is on. While the water's heating up, grab an onion or two. Cut that onion from top to bottom into quarters. And you know what? You don't even have to peel it if you don't feel like it. Some folks don't. Grab a carrot. Again, you can use 2 if you're into carrots and you have the room. And as before, peel it or don't. Cut that carrot into a few chunks and toss that in too. You have any celery? Guess what? 1 or 2, cut it into chunks, put it in. And leave those greens. The greens are the best part. Don't throw those away. You're starting to get the vibe of this particular lesson? Chicken stock is very, very forgiving. It's flexible and adaptable. You need a chicken for sure, but after that it all comes down to what you have on hand. Quantities here are vague, and that leaves you room to make it the way you like it. Celery not your favorite? F*** off, celery! Usually I'll make my stock in a batch this size with 1 carcass, 2 yellow onions, 2 medium carrots, 2 stalks of celery. After that, I'll add a couple of bay leaves, half dozen peppercorns. I love thyme, so I usually add as much as my herb garden would give up without me stressing it to death. In the off season, I use maybe half of one of these packages that you see in the grocery store. Normally this would be the time to start hitting it with some salt, but we're not making a soup. If you salt it now and then later reduce it down, say you're making risotto, all the salt you put in at this stage to make it taste like broth will concentrate and really come forward after you've cooked a lot of the water out of it. Bring it just to a boil, then back the heat off a hair and let it simmer uncovered for a few hours. It's hard to let it go too long really, and you don't need to do any stirring or anything beyond checking once in a while to make sure your water hasn't gotten too low. If the chicken starts poking out of the stock, add some water until it doesn't, and then go back to whatever you were doing. Again, none of my business. When you're bored enough to call it quits, place a colander inside a large bowl or pot or something that you can easily catch the stock in and pour it back out of. Carefully pour your stock into the colander. This stuff can get tossed. Then grab your finest strainer, which if it looks similar to this, will work just fine on its own. Otherwise, line a regular strainer with a few layers of cheesecloth and pour your stock through it and into whatever container you want to store this stuff in. I'm making soup tomorrow, so this will be fine in the fridge until then. Otherwise, I'd freeze it in a bunch of deli half-quart containers. Let this cool to room temperature before putting it in your fridge or freezer. And that's it, chicken stock. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. It does mean a lot. Thank you for that. If I helped you in any way, you can help me by hitting the subscribe button and throwing a like my way. If you have any questions, I'll answer them in the comments, so swing on by and say hey. I hope you learned something.